What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and it's time for my Week 4 Top 25 ranking. And want to clear up exactly what this ranking is, because I get this in the comments a lot. People don't seem to understand. First of all, this is not a resume ranking. I'm not ranking the resumes. This is not what I think the playoff committee would do or anything. We're not just looking at resumes. Now, I will look at resumes at times just to see how teams performed against quality competition. So yeah, you do have to look at who teams played, but we're not ranking the teams based off of their resume only. And also, it's not about where I'm projecting the teams to be. It's about what we have seen so far in 3 games from these teams. The performance of these 3 teams. So against the competition that they have played, how have they performed? That's it. And I haven't watched every second of every game, so maybe I've missed some things, but based off of what I have seen, and I think I've seen every top 25 team play, at least a half of football this year. I've probably seen most of them play over a full game, and you can look at scores and things as well, but it's about the performance so far. What we have seen, not worrying about preseason expectations or any of that. What have we seen in the first 3 games? And that's all we're looking at in these rankings. Not a projection of what I think the rankings are going to look like at the end of the season, or how good I think these teams can be or have the potential to be. Simply, what have we seen in these first 3 weeks? And a lot of you do get this. You understand. You leave great comments saying this is a great way to rank teams, and I appreciate that. But for whatever reason, a lot of people still don't seem to get it. Let's get into it. And I'll tell you what, there are 12 teams, and I will show you those 12 teams that I think you can make a great argument for being in the top 25 that I don't have in my top 25. Because it's very hard right now. There's not a clear-cut 25 teams. We'll talk about those 12 teams. So watch till the end of the video. Don't ask, why is it this team ranked? Why is it this team ranked? I will explain, and I will show you those teams at the end of the video, or after we go through the top 25. We're going to start at the bottom, 21 through 25. I've got Baylor at 25, BYU at 24, Tulane at 23, Cincinnati at 22, Syracuse at 21. All right, BYU just lost to Oregon. That's going to drop them a good bit. And right now, I can't put Baylor ahead of BYU after BYU beat them head-to-head. We just don't have enough sample size. When you have 2 teams with the same losses and you've only played 3 or 4 games, I don't understand how you can rank a team ahead of a team that beat them. So, like, I think the AP poll has Utah ahead of Florida, for example. And they might even have Baylor ahead of BYU. I don't even remember. I don't see how you can do that. There's just been so little football played. If 2 teams have played head-to-head, how can you say the team that lost is better than the team that beat them? Makes no sense. These 2 teams, though, barely staying in the top 25. Tulane, in making a debut here at 23, they beat Kansas State, a Kansas State team who blew out Missouri. So we know Kansas State is a quality team. Tulane at 3-0, they took care of business in their other 2 games. I don't think they're going to stay in the top 25, but based off of these first 3 games, Tulane deserves to be ranked. Cincinnati at number 22. A lot of this is about Arkansas and the way that they played in that game. All of a sudden, Arkansas doesn't look as good after they struggled with an FCS team. So, yeah, Cincinnati did drop a good bit in my rankings, but I still believe, based off of what I've seen, Arkansas is a quality team. And so Cincinnati for now ranked. We'll see what Arkansas looks like against Texas A&M. If Texas A&M wins that game, Arkansas is probably going to drop a lot, and Cincinnati probably won't be ranked. So, yeah, Texas A&M is going to affect Cincinnati's ranking just because we're trying to figure out how good all these teams are. Syracuse at 21. What a win over Purdue. They beat a pretty good Louisville team as well. So Syracuse sitting there at number 21. They are ranked. So surprise teams, Syracuse and Tulane. Didn't expect to see them in the top 25 at all this year. And again, I don't think they're going to stay there. Although Syracuse might. I mean, this team is pretty good. They find ways to win. And that was a very impressive comeback to beat Purdue. All right, 16 through 20. I've got LSU just behind Florida State. Florida State, a gutsy win over Louisville. They lose Jordan Travis and still find a way to win. So that just tells me that this is not just in, they lost Jared Verse, had a couple other injuries. This was a very, very impressive win for Florida State to overcome all of that and win on the road on a Friday night, tough environment. Really, really impressed with them. And their win over LSU looks even better now that LSU just went out and beat Mississippi State. And so you've got Florida State and LSU ranked. Florida State just ahead of them because, again, they beat them head-to-head, and they're also undefeated. LSU has the one loss. Utah at 18, just behind Florida. And we talked about this before. Florida beat them head-to-head, and I realized that Florida did not look great this past week. But you can't, these aren't power rankings. You can't just look at week 3. You have to look at the entire season. And Florida did look really good against Utah. So that is enough to keep them ranked at 17. But they're going to have to play much better if they're going to beat Tennessee on the road. Oregon, very nice win for them as they improved to 2-1. I think we can kind of forgive the Georgia game because Georgia's just that good, I think. And we didn't know that. You know, that's the thing. We're learning more and more about these teams. You see Georgia just go out and annihilate South Carolina, and you know, okay, Georgia's just really, really, really good. It's not that Oregon is a bad team. I don't think there are many teams that could even play with Georgia right now. Maybe no teams. Honestly, there may not be a team in the country that could take Georgia into the fourth quarter right now. That is how good Georgia is playing. That loss doesn't look as bad now for Oregon, and they move up to number 16 after a very impressive win over BYU. Moving on to 11 through 15, NC State, very nice win over Texas Tech. Texas Tech's a team that we know is a quality team. We've seen them look pretty good for the first couple of games, so this was a very nice win for NC State, and that's going to bump them up to number 15. Oklahoma State at number 14. I'll tell you what hurts them. Their best win right now is Arizona State, a game where I watched the first half of that game. They did not play well in the first half. I know they got it going in the second half and pulled away in that one. But Arizona State just lost to Eastern Michigan. They're not a very good team. So I don't know about Oklahoma State, but they have taken care of business, and they're up to number 14. Tennessee at number 13. The win over Pitt, still a very nice win, but how good is Pitt? We're still trying to figure that out. So, you know, we're looking at that Tennessee performance against Pittsburgh. Did they perform that way against a really good team or an average team or a bad team? You know, we just don't know about Pitt right now. The West Virginia lost to Kansas. I mean, there's so many dominoes that fall here early in the season trying to figure out how good these teams are. And I've always said you need about 4 games because usually after 4 games, you've seen every team at least play one quality opponent. You can find out if they're consistent against the cupcakes, things like that. So, yeah, we'll find out a little bit more about Tennessee when they play Florida this weekend. Texas at number 12. Really nice second half against UTSA. That was a really good win without Quinn Ewers. I believe that this is very possibly a top 10 team with Quinn Ewers. With Hudson Card, though, I don't know if they're a top 15 team. I kind of, again, went in the middle because how do you rank a team? Because they're going to get Ewers back, and so it's hard to really know where to put Texas. So I've got them at 12. Clemson at number 11. The defense not as good as we thought, and I mentioned this on, I think it was my takeaways video. Ole Miss went out and shut out Georgia Tech. So that Clemson defense that looked really good against Georgia Tech, well, Ole Miss played Georgia Tech better than Clemson on the defensive side, on both sides of the ball. So all of a sudden, Clemson, I'm not sure about this Clemson team. The offense played better, but I think they may have some of the same issues that they had last year, and this is a team that, again, lost some games last season. And that's a theme for this year. A lot of these teams have the same issues they had last year, which is interesting, very interesting. I think Alabama could be in that category as well. Let's go to 6 through 10. Arkansas and Kentucky dropping just a little bit. Kentucky's win over Florida doesn't look as good now that you see Florida struggle against FAU. Arkansas struggled against an FCS team. If they didn't have 2 wins against quality teams in their first 2 games, I don't know if Arkansas would even be ranked right now. So let's say they had played a couple other cupcake games. After seeing them struggle against an FCS team, you have to wonder how good is this Arkansas team? How good is Cincinnati? How good is South Carolina? And then that kind of circles back to Georgia. Did Georgia just beat a bad South Carolina team? Well, no, because they beat Oregon, and we saw what Oregon did to BYU. So you start to fill in all these pieces and learn about these teams. But I think the jury is still out on Kentucky and Arkansas a little bit. But I think they're good teams. It's just a matter of how are they in that upper tier, or are they just kind of top 25 teams? Ole Miss up to number 8. I just mentioned how they played Georgia Tech better than Clemson. The defense for Ole Miss is playing really good football right now. And something else that helps them is the fact that Troy almost beat App State. we thought, Ole Miss, they didn't look great against Troy. Well, it turns out Troy's a pretty good team, and that win now looks better. So Ole Miss shooting way up the rankings, all the way up to number 8. I know Georgia Tech is not a great team, but they're an okay-ish Power 5 team, a lower tier Power 5 team, and Ole Miss completely dominated them. So that's enough for me to put Ole Miss up to number 8. That, and also the fact that the win over Troy, again, looks much better now. Penn State up to number 7, as they are 3-0 with a big win on the road at Auburn. I realize that Auburn is not a good team right now. They might be in the same category as Georgia Tech. But to go into a tough environment, a game where they were really fired up, and to see Sean Clifford play the way that he has played so far this season, that's the deal for Penn State. We know this team has talent. Yeah, they're young, but they've got some good talent on the roster. They've got some good young running backs, solid receivers. The defense, young but athletic. It's all about Sean Clifford, and we've seen the good Sean Clifford and the bad Sean Clifford. But so far, everything I've seen, well, I guess he had a few bad moments in the Purdue game, but in this Auburn game, it was all good from Sean Clifford. If he can play that way, Penn State becomes a team that could possibly challenge Ohio State and Michigan in the Big Ten. That's the question. Can he do that consistently? Because if he does not, Penn State's, I think, going to drop off a good bit. It's all about the quarterback position for them. That's going to determine whether they're a great team or just an average team. We'll see how that plays out. And last year, you look back to last year, Penn State was playing good football before he went down with an injury. So now that he's playing the way he's playing, again, Penn State becomes dangerous. And I've got him up to number 7. Ohio State at number 6. They are 3-0. A big win that they had, a pretty easy win for them this past weekend. Again, they move up to number 6 in the rankings. And then Georgia at number 1 through Oklahoma at number 5. The Bulldogs are at number 1. And again, I don't think there's really any debate about it. This Georgia team looks like the best team in the country. They've got the defense that they've had for years now under Kirby Smart. We've seen them play that dominant brand of defense, and it's no different this year. Yeah, they're young, but they're still really, really good. This is just a really good football team. I don't think, again, there's really much debate about it because the offense now is playing at a high level for this team as well. Stetson Bennett playing, I think he's number 2 in the SEC in passing or something like that. I mean, Georgia is just really, really good. So why are USC and Michigan ahead of Alabama? The fact is that USC and Michigan have not, I realize Michigan has not played anyone, but we know based on the rosters, USC and Michigan have very talented rosters. We know the talent is there, and we just have not seen either team struggle. Now, Michigan, when they play a quality team, they might struggle, and if they do, they're going to drop. But they have completely dominated in all 3 of their games against bad competition, I know, but you see teams struggle against these teams. 3 games, to do that 3 games in a row, that's impressive to me. And so Michigan there at number 3 because they would just have not seen them struggle yet. And USC, we haven't seen them struggle either. They beat a pretty good Fresno State team. They dominated against Stanford. The defense worries me a little bit because they're getting a lot of turnovers. They're kind of playing that bend but don't break style where they get big stops in the red zone. Can they do that consistently? That'll be interesting to see. But right now, USC and Michigan, both teams have played great football all year. This is where kind of the resume comes in. USC has played better teams. That's why they're number 2. Alabama has struggled. We've seen them struggle against Texas. Again, it looks like Texas might be a really good team, but still, we saw them struggle in that game. And the offense even struggled this past weekend against ULM. That was not a great performance by the offense, especially in the first half. Their defense and special teams are the only reason why they had a big lead at halftime. They got it going a little bit better in the second half. But we've seen them struggle, and it's the same struggles we've seen from last year, plus the receivers are not really stepping up for them. So I have questions about Alabama. I've got them at number 4. And Oklahoma at number 5. They would be a little bit higher, but we saw them struggle in week 2, a game against a bad opponent where they were in a close game at halftime. So we have seen them struggle. So that's the difference for me in USC and Michigan and Alabama and Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma looked great against Nebraska. Now that they get into Big 12 play, we'll see how they look. But right now, I've got them in the top 5. And so as I was doing these rankings, I have no idea what happened. I had Washington on my list, and then I just forgot to insert them into the top 25. And I really don't want to have to go back and redo this whole video. But I did have Washington ranked. They were supposed to be, I believe, at number 9, right behind Ole Miss. So Washington was supposed to be in these rankings at number 9, which would actually bump Baylor out of the rankings. Again, I have no idea what happened there. I had them on my list to rank them, and then I was just going through, I kind of make a list of all the teams that I'm considering, and I do a brand new top 25 every week. I don't just move teams up and down. I start from scratch. I list all the teams out. They were on my list, and somehow they got deleted or something. So I don't know, but Washington should have been ranked at number 9. After a very impressive win over Michigan State, Washington, they look like the real deal. Knew coming into this year that they should be improved, but I didn't know how much. Based off of that game, it looks like they've improved a lot. A lot of football to play, obviously. They'll have a big game against Stanford coming up. We'll learn a little bit more about them. And we'll find out just how good Stanford is and find out if that USC win was really that good. Of course, USC has Oregon State coming up. That'll be a good test. So that's why I say after about the fourth game, that's when you really kind of know about these teams. At this point, we're still guessing on some of this. So other teams that I considered, and like I said, Washington should have been in this list. I apologize to the Washington fans. Some of you are not going to listen to this video, and you're going to comment and say, where was Washington? I can just about guarantee it. I'll try to put a pin a comment there to explain that one. Again, I apologize, but these are the other teams that I considered. I think this cluster of teams, North Carolina, Appalachian State, Texas A&M, and Miami, they have to be in that order. And these 12 teams are not in any specific order overall. But those 4 teams, look, North Carolina beat App State. App State beat Texas A&M. Texas A&M beat Miami. I don't see how you could rank those teams any differently. I don't see how Texas A&M could be ranked and App State could not. I don't see how Miami could be ranked and North Carolina could not, just because of this order. I think all 4 of those teams, you can make a great case for them being ranked. North Carolina is undefeated. They do have the win over App State. App State beat Texas A&M. That's a big win for them. Miami honestly looked like the better team, except for in the red zone against Texas A&M. I think they outgained them by about 80 yards, but they just could not score in the red zone. They had the muff punt. I still look back at that game because I picked Miami to win it. I still look back at it and say that Miami should have won that game. If they had just been a little bit more aggressive and played a little better in the red zone, not made those mistakes. So I think those 4 teams are pretty even. I want to see if Texas A&M could beat Arkansas, then I think you're going to see them back in the rankings, and you'll know that App State game was just a little bit of a fluke. But they didn't look great, honestly, against Miami. Just were kind of lucky to win that game. But I think Miami is a good team. Look, I think Miami is a top 25 team. I think they're a top 15 team. But it's based off of the performance on the field, and they just did not perform well against Texas A&M when it mattered. Michigan State, I still think it's a top 15 team. But we just haven't really seen anything to prove that yet. That's why I don't have them ranked. I think they play Minnesota coming up. That'll be a really good test for them. Minnesota undefeated. I need to see a little bit more from them. And again, you're going to say, well, they're 3-0. Michigan's 3-0. Why is Michigan in the top 5 and Minnesota? They haven't played anybody tough, but they've been taking care of business. Well, we just know so much more about Michigan. We know the roster. We know it's a team that just went to the college football playoff. They're even better with J.J. McCarthy in there at quarterback. So that's the difference there. And I know you can nitpick with these rankings, and you can make all kinds of arguments, but it is what it is. I mean, at some point, you just have to rank the teams. Pittsburgh, I talked about them earlier. I think they're still a quality team. I'd like to see a little bit more from them. Wake Forest struggled a little bit against Liberty. I think Liberty is a quality opponent. We'll find more out about this Wake Forest team when they play Clemson on Saturday. Kansas is 3-0. I was so close to ranking Kansas. So close. But Houston, all of a sudden, we're not really sure how good they are. The West Virginia win looks nice. How good, though, is West Virginia? I just need to see a little bit more from Kansas, and then I think they will be ranked if they can win. Maybe if they win Saturday, they will be ranked. Mississippi State, tough loss to LSU. I still think this is a quality team, and they had a lead in the second half, I believe, in that game. So yeah, I still think the Bulldogs are a good team. Washington State is 3-0 with a big win over Wisconsin. Got to consider them, and Oregon State also 3-0. We will see how good they are when they play USC. So those are the other teams that I considered. I think next week my top 25 will be accurate. This week, I don't think this is a good top 25 because I don't think anyone can do a good top 25 just because we just don't know enough. But after next week, after that 4th game, we'll start over. We'll do a new top 25. And then I think we will really have a much better idea of how good these teams are and where they should be ranked. Would love to get your thoughts. Let me know what you thought about my top 25. Give me your top 25 down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.